Hello, Jillian and Jonathan. So this should be American History 2, Lecture 7. Now I'm going to play a video, and the volume may not be very loud, so I'm hoping it's extremely quiet in my house and you can actually hear what's being said on the screen. But this is the only way I can show you a video that I can think of. So this is the Morning in America ad. The Morning in America ad that Ronald Reagan's campaign ran in 1982. This is from his presidential library, and the quality of the video is not great, but at least you can see the images, I think. Let's give it a try.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years. This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
So there you had the tagline at the end. Under the leadership of President Reagan, America is better, stronger. I can't remember the lines. But anyway, it ends with, why would we ever want to go back to where we were just 4 short years ago? Again, evoking the Carter administration and its difficulties. Now, if I can, well, I don't know where it's gone. I thought I'd stopped it, but I guess I hadn't. I wanted to play it one more time so you can listen in detail to exactly what's said. So I'm going to try that again and listen as best you can to the exact words.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years. This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
Yeah, under the leadership of President Reagan, America is prouder, stronger, and better. And that sums it up right there. This feel-good feeling. Oh, okay. Well, actually, the very next thing that came up, I mentioned to the assassination attempt on President Reagan that very nearly killed him just a few weeks after he became president. I think it was less than 2 months, if memory serves, or very slightly more than 2 months. This is footage, actually, of the actual shooting. There were news cameras there as he was leaving a hotel, getting in the presidential limousine when John Hinckley jumped out and fired at him. So if you can make this out with all the shadows, I'm sorry for all the reflection on the glass, but this is the actual moment when, oh, that's the Morning in America ad again. Well, now we've got an advertisement.
It's like gone. It's way better. I can't believe that. What is this?
Okay, so this...
March 30th, 1981.
You can hear the gunshots.
John Hinckley Jr. fires 6 shots at President Ronald Reagan. A bullet lodges an inch away from his heart. Reagan is rushed into the operating room and tells his doctors, "I hope you're all Republicans."
Presenting to you the President of the United States.
That's Speaker Tip O'Neill.
president survived, of course. And besides his toughness, the shooting showed the American people that the great communicator also had quite a sense of humor.
Letter came from Peter Sweeney. He's in the 2nd grade in the Riverside School in Rockville Center. And he said, I hope you get well quick, or you might have to make a speech in your pajamas.
Throughout his political career, Reagan used humor to win friends, influence voters,
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your
and slay the opposition. No one knew that better than Democratic challenger Walter Mondale.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
So you see there, Walter Mondale was his opponent in 1984, who was a man already in his late 60s. So Ronald Reagan, who was then in his early 80s, made a joke about his youth and inexperience.
His humor seem off the cuff, except that it wasn't.
Mike Devers, in his book, said that I had a short attention span. Well, I was going to reply to that, but oh, what the hell, let's move on to something else.
You know, you could talk to any number of President Reagan's speechwriters over the years, and when they might hand him a speech, sometimes the speeches would come back with a quote or an expression or a joke that they hadn't seen before.
Turns out the Gibber had a secret comedic weapon, says John Highbush, executive director of the Reagan Library. So all of this is the contents of his desk, the last desk he used.
2 boxes filled with the last objects sitting inside President Reagan's working desk.
Cool. All right, well, listen, I want to see this stuff.
This is kind of interesting.
Buried
The last
inside
thing's
one
on
of
his
these
desk.
boxes, a stack of index cards.
The president's famous one-liners, his best jokes, written on both sides. You know, this is the humor of Ronald Reagan in 3x5.
This one is titled One-Liners. Adolescence is the time when children suddenly feel responsible for answering the phone. It's pretty good. It's funny. As unassuming as these look, they were political dynamite, a war chest of jokes. Many he wrote himself, others he borrowed.
And someone has once said that actually, as long as there are final exams, there will be prayer in schools.
I can remember when a hot story broke and the reporters would run in yelling, "Stop the chisels."
We showed some of the jokes to
Okay, so anyway, those are some. President Reagan was known as the great communicator, and you know, there's plenty of humor. Not so funny. I wanted to show you this map on this short video. This is a map of the Middle East. The orange here is the state of Israel, and now you can see on this why there has been so much tension over Israel over the decades. The original state of Israel was this orange area, and you can see that initially it was just narrow strips. The area on one side of Jerusalem here, and right next to the sea. Almost none of this. I mean, this really is smaller than Dallas and Fort Worth, Dallas and Tarrant counties put together as the whole country. But in 1968, the Arab nations on all sides, Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and Egypt, all attacked Israel. This was Egypt then. This was Jordan then. And they all attacked Israel at the same time in 1968. This is known as the 6-Day War because the Israelis pummeled them all to submission in 6 days. The Israeli army is extremely well trained. Every person in Israel, male or female, who isn't physically unable or isn't a rabbinical student, has to do military service, men and women, for 2 years, and they all can be called up in the reserves. So although Israel is a very small country, it has a shockingly large defense force, and it is equipped with American weapons of the very best quality in large quantity. And therefore, it took down all of its Arab enemies, all those countries, in 6 days, and seized this area here, the West Bank, this area here, the Sinai Peninsula, this area here, the Golan Heights from Syria, so that Israel effectively gained control, more than double the territory under its control, but also created a kind of buffer zone. It also gained control of the whole city of Jerusalem, which it then made its capital. Now, the rest of the world had not recognized it as its capital until President Trump did a couple of years ago. But this is why there's so much tension there. These areas in particular, this area here in particular, and the Gaza Strip right there, have more than 1 million Palestinian Arabs who live there, and they've been under Israeli control, directly or indirectly, since 1968. Now, finally, in the 1990s, a peace operation was begun that gave local autonomy to the West Bank and Gaza and to what's known as the Palestinian Authority. But the Israelis still have the right to send troops and to police the West Bank. Now, they don't typically go into Gaza. That's under the control of some really radical and dangerous people, and they basically stay out as much as they can, but they do attack them from the air periodically. So this area has been a hotbed, and it's because of all this. Now, in the peace deal that Jimmy Carter worked out, this area of the Sinai Peninsula was given back to Egypt. So that was in 1978 under Jimmy Carter. But the Gaza Strip, that little bit right there, and the West Bank, are Palestinian Authority autonomy in them, although Israel can go in. Israel still controls the Golan Heights. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about the tensions in the Middle East to you in this video. But the Ronald Reagan ad, I think, was very important. It shows a lot about what it is. You know, he could say in 1984, interest rates are half of what they were in 1980, half. And people can buy homes, and you saw the happy couple moving into their home. And that inflation is down, so there's a promise for the future. Inflation is cut in half over what it was in 1980. And so you had the happy couple getting married, all these positive images. And the old man raising the flag outside of, I guess, a fire station or something. You know, this patriotic imagery, the smiling children, classic political ad. None better, in my opinion, ever made than the Morning in America ad of 1984's Ronald Reagan's campaign, and it paid off with a huge victory. Next lecture, we'll finish the Reagan administration, talk about the Iran-Contra scandal, and the events of the late 80s. God bless.